Hello, hello! Welcome to episode 73 of the Lorethrough. And we are going to continue with the unsightly catacombs. I guess I forgot to touch the grace. I was like, there's no grace symbol on this dungeon. There we go. We've now touched the grace. We'll even take a sit down. And let's get to it. A little bit darker of dungeon. Not too bad. And I wanted to use the warped axe for a little bit, because I feel like I never get a chance to use the warped axe. I thought there was an enemy in here. Oh, there's a misbegotten. I like axes. I really liked axes in Dark Souls 3. In this game, they feel very underwhelming, unless they have the stone club attack pattern. Oh, damage is pretty nice. Just wail on these fellows. How did the Misbegotten get in here? Did they lock the door? Did I pick the lock on their home? But I like Spinning Slash on the Warped Axe. Lots of hits, lots of hyper armor. Feels like something that a Warped Axe would need for such a pleasant weapon. Oh, goodbye. He's not dead. We'll see him later. He's down there. We will go down there at some point. But not now. We're not supposed to know about that. Yet. Chop chop. He had a lot of money on him. It was probably made a lot more because I'm wearing the golden scarab. I don't know, I feel like accruing money so that when I finally get to the point in the game where I'm allowed to overlevel to show off as much as possible. Allowed to. That'll have the points required without too much scrounging for resources later. So down here is a pit. Most of the Misbegotten are dead, but not all of them. There's at least 3 that are still alive. We'll come back to that. We will come back to the mysterious pit of dead. Okay. Oh, there he is. Ooh, I don't like parrying them. Their attack is very odd. Almost like the cleaver's just a smidge too heavy for them. Alright, so coming down here, we have the Erd Tree boss door with its horrible implications. Ooh, that made me feel cool. I hope you saw that. So I'm not doing it again. There we go. Omen Cleaver. Nice. I like the Omen Cleaver. Hits hard. Dismounter probably is a better moveset, though. Though, to be fair, the Cleaver has the chop, which is cool and fun. Maybe not super effective, but cool and fun is very important. It's almost like they're sleeping amongst the dead. It's just a very disheartening thought. I think that's all of them. But it's okay because we have Starlight. The Misbegotten Ashes. And more Ghost Gloveworts. So let's look at the Misbegotten Ashes. Why not? Ashen remains in which spirits yet dwell, used to summon the spirit of a winged Misbegotten. A spirit with the aspect of wings, which takes flight to loose arrows from its bow. The Misbegotten are held to be a punishment for making contact with the Crucible, and from birth they are treated as slaves or worse. Really sad, honestly. Which is weird, because the Crucible was an earlier form of the Erd Tree, according to item descriptions we have read in the past. And so it seems kind of sad that they worshipped the Crucible or an earlier state of the Erd Tree, and then they were later rejected by it. Kind of makes you resent the Erd Tree and the presiding religious authority, huh, Miyazaki? It's almost like this is a theme he really likes in every single game of his. The church is evil. Mwahaha. They are supposed to be the good doers. What if they were the evil ones the whole time? I don't know. Feels just a smidge trite. But that's okay. religion and theologies are very different in Japan, and the perception of it is quite different from what we have here in the West, so it only makes sense. I don't fault him for it. It's just like, I don't know, it'd be nice to have a religious figure who's genuinely good. And actually, there might be a couple that are fairly close to being fairly redeemable. Gold Mask, for one, right? We've only heard about him in the intro for the game. And we've also heard about him from that anti-death blight incantation. We'll learn more about him in time, but he's one who's probably an exception. Maybe I was being a little too general. I'm just trying to think back to Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 3, and it feels like respectable members of the church are usually not the upper echelons, usually. They're usually the bottom rung people who, you could argue, don't know better. Alright, I forget what's in this dungeon, but I hope it doesn't smash my face in too much. Oh no, it's Perfumer Trisha and a Misbegotten. Give me that crit. I need it to stay safe. Oh my gosh. Cool. Trying to be cool. Well, if he could be poisoned, he probably would have already been poisoned. That was a baby jump. I did that bad because I did my inputs bad. It's important to get a little bit of a sprint in there. Even just one step of a sprint to make your jumps not garbage. Because otherwise you get these little baby jumps that are so bad. There we go. Perfumer Trisha. Wow, did we really clear that dungeon in 7 minutes? Well, it's not a huge dungeon. I don't know why I'm looking at my hat. I need to be looking at Perfumer Trisha. Here we go. Trisha was once known as a healer who dedicated her efforts to treating Misbegotten, Omen, and all those seen as impure. When her efforts failed, she was their companion as they died, watching over them to ensure that they could pass peacefully, free of pain. A tale akin to the origins of the deathbed companions. And I just killed her. Just barely. Cold blood. Just walked in, and I just slaughtered her despite her good intentions towards the Misbegotten. Somebody who I was trying to frame as somewhat sympathetic earlier. I'm a monster. That's okay. Let's head to the front. Alright, I wonder how many dungeons we'll get to clear. Maybe 2, and possibly a field boss. We will see. I will switch them around to sprouts because I'm trying to show off more of the spirit ashes. Trying. Keyword. Let me know what imps fight. We can still bring the imps. I think I've used demi-humans before. And everyone's seen the jellyfish. Let's try the imps for the next fight. Imps do bleed, so they're actually a really good ash early on. Though you don't really get them till the merchant once you barely enter the Academy of Rail Lucaria, so it's a long time to hold off for a spirit summon unless you're looking for it. I could be doing a lot more of these fights without the spirit ash, to show off more of the struggle. But I don't know, I kind of like showing off the spirit ashes. I'll try to use more of the crappier ones in the future. What was that red leaf back over here? Was that an Arteria leaf? No, it was a blood rose. Weird out of place blood rose. And golden roas. I don't think we've seen golden roas before. So we'll need to take a look at that. So let's take a look at golden roa. Roa fruit tinged with gold. Material used for crafting items easily found near the Erd tree. Well, that wasn't much in terms of lore. I tried. I really did. Alright, we can use a new weapon. Actually, I think I remember what's in this cave. It's in a slightly different spot. I feel it. There it is. Okay. Weirdly enough, illusory wall. This is a really good tip to leave at the very start of the dungeon that you can't go any farther. It conditions you to look for more illusory walls. And you don't see a whole lot. The Rea Lucaria Academy might be where you find your first. I'm trying to remember any other possible illusory walls you might have seen before that point. Ooh, I had a really neat invasion here as Cousin Albie PvP video. It's already on the channel by the time we're recording this, so go look at that PvP video. I think it's the first invasion actually is in this little place. Kind of shows how hectic it can get if you just try to run through it trying to kill an invader. Rejuvenating pulses. All right. Take a look at these bad boys. Blight accumulates slowly, causing instant death once the threshold is reached. Take one of these in a timely fashion to avoid such an effect. So there is a bolus that can help reduce death blight, which is interesting because death blight is the stuff that those who live in death seem to be infused with. So funny how we do have at least a temporary means of subduing such a thing. Even the Scarlet Rot has a bolus, even though mythically in the lore it feels like it wouldn't have such a thing, such a cure. But maybe it's if used in the early enough stages, the cure works. Wow, Sacred Blade, phenomenal. And it has a projectile. Silver Pickled Foulfoot. The Black Hood. I don't think it has a description, but we'll take a look. Or at least a description of the lore. Hood of lusterless black fabric that conceals its wearer's identity. In this world, there is very little that must necessarily be known. Ha! That feels like a jab at the audience. I'm probably looking too deep into it. Candle... Candle Tree Wooden Shield. A tall, medium-sized wooden shield, light for its size and easy to handle. Thought to represent a surreptitious prophecy of cardinal sin. The lit candle tree design was forbidden. What design could it be telling of? What is the candle tree? We've seen candle trees in the past. They kind of look like a menorah. Or a candelabra. And every time you touch one, you get a ghostly noble trotting somewhere to show you a secret. Now, that could be referencing something else entirely, but we'll try to keep an eye open for that design. Interesting that it's forbidden. What could it be referring to? Kind of reminds me of the Deathrite birds, because the big Deathrite bird that we fought in Liurnia, specifically... it fired death spears as one of its attacks. That kind of had a design like that. A spear with these L-shaped barbs on either side of it. Look at this unaware skeleton. An unnecessary amount of damage to kill him. Maybe he was aware of the chest. Maybe he was there to point us to it. There's a lot of treasure chests in this dungeon. Dragon wound grease. Raptor talons. More stuff. There's a lot of stuff in this cave. This cave's full of loot. Claws comprised of two sharp, thin blades wielded by the assassins of Ravenmount. We fought one while helping Yura in the front plaza area of the Academy of Rea Lucaria. This weapon allows them to imitate the attacks of deathbirds. Besides excelling at airborne attacks, its charge attack mimics the vicious swoop of a bird of prey. So, it has these double attacks, and it has these unique heavies. Oh, I didn't know that the follow-up lets you take a step away. I don't think I've ever seen anybody legitimately use this. But the jump attack has that. The jump heavy, I should say. Interesting. Alright, what was I wielding in that slot? Oh, right, the anti-skeleton bonk. Golden Great Arrow. Okay, I think this is our first time seeing these. Carved Great Arrow made together with the Erd Tree Great Bow. Sorry. Yeah, carved. They're carved. That means they're like Made of wood, I suppose. Carved great arrows made together with the archery great bow deals holy damage. Imbued with an oath-sworn incantation which boosts the attack and defense of the archer and their nearby allies. Now it buffs the attack and defense of the archer of their nearby allies if the arrow lands nearby. So what you can do is you could have the golem great arrows in your main slot, and you could put the golden great arrows in your side slot. And when you start a fight with it, with the golem great bow or whatever great bow of your choosing is, you could God, my brain's losing the words. You could shoot the ground right beside yourself with the golden great arrow and get the buff for you and your team, and then you start using golem arrows for the great damage and their area effect. Raptor's black feathers and the skeletal mask. Interesting that they are in separate chests. But we'll take a look at those nonetheless. Skeletal mask that tightly grips the face, worn by the assassins of Ravenmount, very reminiscent of a certain bloodborne helm. This ritual implement relentlessly digs into the wearer's face, preserving one's human's instincts while dressed in an imitation of the Deathbirds. And the chest piece, which it looks like the bandit chest piece, honestly. Yeah, there's bandit garb. Raptor's black feathers. They look the same. The difference is one has this extra robe on it, or this cloak. Robe crafted with the black feathers of a bird of prey, worn by the Ravenmount, or the assassins of Ravenmount. A ritual implement for transforming into a deathbird, if only by imitation. Strengthens jump attacks. We are birds of prey, bringers of death. So, if you wear that, and then you wear the jump attack talisman, you'll get a hefty bonus. As of patch 1.09, I believe their effects have been reduced. Maybe it was hotfix 1.0901 or 0.1. But they're reduced. They're still fairly effective. For all I know, they were just reduced in PvP. But let's start this fight. And bring our little friends. And he's got a little skeleton thing right next to him. I don't think there's any other little monsters in here. But he summons skulls with his flail there. And this is Necromancer Garrus. We've actually seen his name before in item descriptions. And they're not doing too bad against him, honestly. Oh, they got a bleed off, too. Big chunk of damage. His damage isn't too bad either. Ooh, he has the Rosis Axe. Or no, he's using the Ash of War. Or no, the sorcery. There's a sorcery that does the same thing as the Rosis Axe. God, shouldn't be talking about it too much because we haven't seen it yet, but... There we go. Necromancer Garrus dealt with. He also had a fancy staff we haven't seen. But he drops the family heads. Which I think is a... Yeah, it's a dex weapon with an int requirement, so it's a weird one. Familiar Rancor is its Ash of War. 3 bludgeoning copper heads attached to a handle by chains. Signature weapon of Necromancer Garrus, the Heretical Sage. And sure enough, he was wearing a Heretic's outfit, or the Heretic Sage outfit, much like Gowry was in Celia. The heads were made to resemble those of his wife and 2 children. So, kind of the spiritual successor to Pinwheel, I suppose. It's subtle, but I thought I could hear the bone clinking sound when they moved, which is weird because they're supposed to be made of metal. Yeah, these horrible heads. But we can use it. Gently rattle the copper heads to summon vengeful spirits that chase down foes. The anguish of a spouse and children invites accursed wrath. Yeah, it summons a handful of spirits. And it looks like they're various sizes even. Kind of interesting. I wonder how good their tracking is and their range versus the spell. But we still have more of this dungeon to explore. Sure enough. We're not done here. What do I want to use? I kind of want to use the Knight's Heavy Greatsword. That sounds fun. Alright. Oh. And because this dungeon's not over and it is a duo dungeon, we can use another Spirit Ash to help us out. I didn't buff the Great Shield Soldier Ashes. They might still be worth it. I'll give them a go. We don't see our enemy readily, which is a little bit worrisome. But we see splashes approaching us, and something's going wrong here. So there's an item you can get, and thankfully Spirit Summons will show up, but it's a Black Knife Assassin. Hard to see, but there's an item you can get later in the plateau called the Sentry's Torch. And it'll show them. It'll show them. I hate trying to hit him. That's damage. That's what we're looking for. At least the shields bully him a little bit. But yeah, the Sentry's Torch, even if you don't have the stats to wield it, will reveal invisible enemies. So it's like worth having, but it happens so infrequently. And they've dropped the Concealing Veil. Let's take a look at that now. Talisman put together from dark cloth with a lustrous sheen completely conceals the wearer's presence while crouching at distance from foes. Part of one of the concealing veils used by the assassins on the Night of Black Knives. This is probably how they were able to get to Godwyn in the first place. Let's read the description of the Sentry's Torch. Torch given to protectors of the Erd Tree. Its flames are bestowed with a special incantation which allows the bearer to see assassins cloaked in veils. Furnished on behalf of the Erd Tree and the grace-given Lord, such that the Night of the Black Knives will never come again. So, the grace-given Lord, who was in charge of Leyndell after the Shattering and after the event. And for some reason, there's Albinaurics tied up here. What? It seemed like this was a hideout for the Ravenmount assassins, right? What do they have to do with the Night of Black Knives, if anything? It seems that the Black Knife assassins find places to hide out since their coup happened. And so it makes me wonder what on earth these Albinaurics are for. Who would do this to them here of all places? What is the purpose? Now, don't get me wrong, it adds grim and gloom. What was Necromancer Garrus doing back here as well? There's all sorts of weird stuff happening in this weird particular... I guess it's the Sage's Cave. So maybe it wasn't a Ravenmount assassin hideout necessarily. Or maybe it's more recently known by Necromancer Garrus. Very odd. Alright, let's... Actually, we can just teleport to the abandoned coffins. And we have just enough time, I think, to get up the hill. Which means we'll have done our very first part of the Altus Plateau. With great, rousing success. Alright. What to bring? Apparently Giant Hunt is also pretty good at poise-breaking enemies, so we'll give that a go. Yep, sure enough. Then again, Omens probably don't have the most incredible poise. They have some, of course. But it is nice to have a means of dealing with them fairly effectively. Get in the good old heavy. Follow it up with a Giant Hunt, and they don't stand a chance. And if you need a warped axe, this is a much easier location to farm for it. That was kind of climactic. That was neat. Knocking him off there. Okay, and there's an item over here. And I went too far, just like that poor omen 2 seconds ago. Fergal blooms. We found Fergal blooms before. They're the lightning plant. Alright, and there is a Stake of America here of all places. And we find the Ruler's Mask and Kenneth Heights robe. So let's take a look at those really fast. Alright, mask in the image of a wizened sage. Customary dress amongst lords in a smaller nation. Increases faith by 1 whole point. Such a mask illustrates the qualities of an ideal lord, chiefly wise and possessing a certain defanged geniality. One at the center of society often finds these qualities most expedient. Luxurious robe worn by lords in a smaller nation, its fine blue mantle serves to prove its wearer's status. And I don't think we found anything quite like it. There are various versions of this robe, different colors, usually without the coat. And we'll find those in time. Alright, I think we're good to make our way up the hill. Who to bring to help me? Why not Latenna? Maybe she can be of some assistance. I feel like I need to bring the lance. Yeah, we'll bring the lance. Oh, I thought I had another moment to roll. And the dragon leaves after a good part of the fight. But Latenna is a great pick for that fight because you can just plop her far away safely and she'll make hits the whole time. Honestly, Latenna is a top tier summon in my book. Her biggest drawback being that she hangs back and doesn't move at all. But because she doesn't move at all, it's good that she hangs back, so I said that weird. I meant that her drawback is that she does not move. I feel like there is... I thought there was something to loot over here. Can't you see the omen? I have to climb this tower. There's an item all the way up here. Is there a way to jump to it? Or is it one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, you could jump to it if you have torrent. Ah, shucks. Ew, no. Overshot it. There we go. And you find a nascent butterfly. The omen didn't stand a chance. God, lance with impaling thrust. I never would have known. I mean, I like impaling thrust, but I always stick it on like a greatsword or something. And that's probably because it's fairly useful on like a claymore. You can chain impaling thrust and the heavies together and be very oppressive and have good range and damage against players in PvP. So, that's probably why. Alright. Coming up on the end of the episode here. Pass by these wolves. And up here, we see Noble scrounging around in the dirt. We see Millicent. And a Grace. So we will grab the Grace, and we will talk to Millicent next time. There's also Golden Seed. We finally get a good sight of the central of Altus Plateau, complete with all of its banners and the majesty of the Erd Tree. And there's even another minor Erd Tree over there. Very neat. Oh, and here is Rhea. So we can talk to her as well. And actually, to kind of point out the funny, Canathite's wearing her same outfit. Who wore it better, right? I don't know why that cracks me up so. It just does. Okay. I need item type because I have already lost my chest piece. There it is. Okay. So we will talk to those two fine ladies next time. And that will be episode 74, I believe. Wow, we are making progress. But thank you for joining me again. I'll see you next time, and bye-bye.